Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, it's the start of a new month, so that means a brand new theme for Let's Play. Now, to those of you that are new to Let's Play is all about specific ways to rediscover how to play. And they're the ways that I rediscovered as I was on my journey to go from super stressed out to embracing the play, letting myself have fun creating and making art. So, what's the theme for this month? It is taking non-art supplies and making them art supplies. Now this is kind of close to basically breaking the rules. There's a certain way that people expect to use some things, and you can use them in a completely different way when you're creating or making art. So in this week's video, what I'm going to be using is a cake spinner. This is by Wilton, and normally you would put your cake on it, and you could spin it as you're decorating and frosting it and doing all that kind of stuff. Only I'm going to put the jelly plate on it and get addicted to watching this thing go round and round. Oh, and before we get started, of course, the word of caution: once you use something that's like a food tool for something that's not food like paint, you can't go back and use it with food again. So kind of common sense about that. I'm okay with this now being an art tool because I never made that many cakes, but I certainly love playing with the jelly plate. So here's the jelly plate, here is the cake spinner, and it spins around and it's actually quite addictive. I look for any excuse to make this thing go round and round. And then you just plop the jelly plate in the middle. Give it a little spin, see if it seems really way off. I tend to like things kind of centered, so I'll kind of play around with it a little bit to get it to an approximate center. Am I getting the actual mathematical center? No. But what I don't want is something like that. The technique won't work as easily for me that way, so I want it in about the middle. Once I've got it where I'm happy, now it's time to bring out the paint. I've got several paint brushes and a bunch of acrylic paints here. And all I'm going to do is dip the brush into it, hold the brush down, and then spin the wheel. I'm going to keep the brush in the same place, and the jelly plate is the thing that's moving thanks to the cake spinner. Now, how many colors do I put on? How much paint do I put on? Well, that's totally up to me, and I change it a little bit each time. The more paint that you have on there, the more solid that your print will be. The less paint that you have on there, the more white space or empty spots without paint that you'll have. So it really depends on what it is you want. Now, what I'm doing right here, this really isn't a masterful technique. This is me just having way too much fun spinning it and watching it go round and round and being mesmerized by the colors. So that's why I add so much paint to it. But now it's time to take the pull. So I've just put a piece of paper on here. This is 90-pound cardstock that I'm using. Any paper will work with this, whatever you've got. Book text, newsprint, art journal paper, whatever you've got. If it's paper, just stick it on there and pull your print up. So once I lift it up, you'll start to see all the bits of color in places. Now, wherever there's white space, that means I didn't have a lot of paint, or I didn't have any paint. Perhaps the paint dried before I got to it, or perhaps, again, I just didn't have any paint there. Now, the second print is called the ghost print with a jelly print, and there's not nearly as much paint there, but that one's kind of cool, and I'm going to keep using that same ghost print over and over again. And I'll explain that when I take my next set of pulls. It'll make more sense when you see it in action. Now, I could actually sit here and do this all afternoon. It's sort of a mesmerizing optical illusion that I've got going on here, and I get to customize it to whatever colors I want. I get to make it spin as fast as I want, and I get slightly different looks the faster I spin my jelly plate, or the slower that it goes, or how much paint I've got on there. So there are lots and lots of ways to experiment, to play, and just kind of get lost and just dive into that optical illusion. So now as I take this pull, I've got a fresh piece of paper here for my first one, and this is going to be my juiciest print because it's got the most paint on it. That makes sense, right? So then once I lift it up, I'll see if I had paint. I had a lot more paint on this one than I did the first time through because there's less white space. Now I'm going to take my second print. This is the ghost print. Because I had a lot more paint on here this time, I think I'm going to get more paint on this ghost print. Now, is it a guarantee? Nothing with a jelly plate is a guarantee, but I can make an educated guess. So I've got more paint on that one, but there's still some paint left on that jelly plate. So I'm taking that very first ghost that had just a little bit on it, and I'm going to build up on that by putting some more paint on it from here. And so you can see how that one's just going to keep building up. I'm going to keep using that print over and over again for the very last pull. One of the things that I'm frequently asked is, what do I do with all the prints that I make? Because you're seeing how much fun I'm having with this. You can totally imagine a giant stack of these right next to me as I'm done. And then what do I do? Well, first of all, I enjoy making them so much, I don't care if I use them or not. Because for me, it's about the process and the fun. but they're also really fun prints, so I do use them. And one of the ways that I use them is in an art journal, and I have a video coming up in the next week or so showing you how I used it. So one of the fastest ways to be sure that you'll see it is hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. Another way is by getting signed up for my newsletter, because every couple of weeks I send out an update with also downloadable goodies, but you'll also know when I have new videos out that way. Now the cool thing to me about this is that every print is different. There are so many variations, and I get slightly different looks off of every single one of these because it depends on how much paint I put on there. Now on this one I had a lot more paint, so you notice I'm tending to put more and more paint on this as I go. I'm basically getting a heavier hand with my paint. So even my second printer, Ghost Print, has a lot of paint on it. Well, now I'm back to that original Ghost Print where it's just picking up those last little remnants and bits off of the plate. That way none of the paint gets wasted, and I'm going to get a different look than the first two pulls. As I'm doing this, I am using one paintbrush per color. So I have probably 5 or 6 paintbrushes out here that I'm using. And I'm doing that so that my colors stay pure or crisper to what the actual color is that comes out of the tube. Does that mean that's how it has to be done, that that is the only way it can be done, that that is the rule for exactly how it must be done? Absolutely not. Because, I mean, really, this is a cake spinner. I'm using a cake spinner with the Gelli plate. It's not like I'm following any rules anyway. And it's not like there's really any wrong way to do it. So if there isn't a wrong way, that means that every way that we're doing it is the right way. And for me, as long as I'm having fun with it, and clearly with this thing going round and round in circles, I am having a lot of fun, then I say I am doing it the right way. And what about using smaller round Gelli plates to do this? The 4-inch or the 6-inch, can you use those to do this? Because the one I'm using here is the 8-inch round Gelli plate, and the answer is absolutely. The difference is you'll just get a smaller circle print on your paper than the larger one. Now for those of you that are brand new to the Gelli plate or just getting started, I've got some videos over on the blog to help you out. Things that show you what you need to get started, what are the general tools and what are they all called, as well as what are the best kinds of paints to use with the Gelli plate. And then there are also links up to lots and lots of my YouTube videos where I've got all sorts of techniques using the Gelli plate. So where can you find all this good stuff? Well, it's all over on the blog at acolorfuljourney.com under the freebie section. As a matter of fact, I've got all sorts of goodies there under the freebie section, not just about the Gelli plate. And I have to tell you that when my husband came down to the studio and I was so excited playing with this, he was so wonderful and smiled and nodded, but he just doesn't quite grasp the level of my excitement when I pull up some of these prints, the level of fun that I'm having just watching this optical illusion of paint spinning round and round. But that's okay, he doesn't have to get it because I'm having a blast doing it. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's fun. If you've enjoyed this video, you know I'd appreciate that thumbs up, and of course I'd really appreciate it if you know someone that you think would enjoy this if you shared this video with them. Thanks for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.